Can you just put viola strings on a violin if you need a smaller viola? Since some small violas are actually smaller than a full-size violin, a lot of people wonder if they can just stick some viola strings on a violin. Yes, you can. However, you may not want to, and you may not have to do that. So today, I'm just going to let you know what your options are. Now, I've already done a video on the differences between a violin and viola, so I'm going to put that link in the description below. So if you want more detail and some more in-depth discussion about that topic, just go ahead and check out that video. But today, we're just going to keep it really simple. I'm just going to talk about what happens when you put viola strings on a violin and, kind of what some of your options are and when you're able to do that and when you can't. So as you probably already know, violas go by measurement, right? So if you're in America, they go by inches, or anywhere else, millimeters. And if the violins, they go by sizes, right? So half size, 3/4 size, full size. And as a general rule, full-size violins are 14 inches. So the body is 14 inches. And each size of violin goes down by an inch, approximately. So a full-size violin will be 14 inches, a 3/4 will be 13 inches, and a half size will be 12 inches, and so on and so forth. So the main question is, of course, can you just put violin strings on a viola? And of course, yes, you can. So, but let's say you need a viola that's 14 inches, right? The same size as a full-size violin. Or maybe, let's say it's a child, right? And the child needs something that's the equivalent to a 3/4 size violin or a half size violin, so 13 inches or 12 inches. Yes, you can put violin strings on there. However, there are some definite compromises when you put viola strings on a violin body. So the reason is very simple. On a viola, you have the lowest string, which is a C string, right? And violas share all the strings with the violin except for the E. They don't have that highest E, and their lowest string is a C. Now that C string is a lower pitch, right? So lower pitches require, they're lower frequencies, and these lower frequencies require longer wavelengths, and these longer wavelengths, they bounce around better in large spaces. So that's why violas generally have larger bodies than violins do. So here's an example. So here's a 15.5-inch viola. Here's a 14-inch violin, which means a full-size violin, right? So as you can see, the bodies, not only is the viola a little longer, but the body is wider. So a lot of times with violas, of course, the length will be larger, but also the width will as well. The reason is because you want that larger volume in there for those sound waves to move around in, okay? Now, the other reason is because the C string moves around more than the G string does, right? So this thicker string needs more room to vibrate when it's moving. Well, a violin, the fingerboard is carved for a G string to move. Now, a G string is not going to move around as much as a C string. So what can happen is, as that C string moves around, it can hit that fingerboard, and that's really ugly. So if I was to play the C string on a violin, I don't know if the camera can pick it up, but not only is the pitch getting distorted, but it's slightly contacting the fingerboard. Now if I play that on a viola, right, the pitch is not distorted, and this is a very small viola too, but the pitch is not really distorted very much, and the C string isn't hitting the fingerboard. Okay, so that's two main points, right? So one will be the sound, and the other is physically the string needs more room to move around. So now I'll give you a little bit of a demonstration on the differences in sounds. Okay, so for this little experiment, what I have is a full-size violin strung up with viola strings. Then I have a very small 15-inch viola that is about the same proportion as a violin, but it's a very small viola with viola strings. And then I have a little bit bigger viola, which is 15.5 inches. So it's a little bit longer, but it's also wider, right? So it's got an even larger sound box. So I'm going to play a little short passage on each instrument, and you'll be able to hear the difference, I think. Even though my microphone isn't the greatest, I'm hoping that you'll hear that the sound is not only bigger, but much fuller. It's just a lot more pleasing sound. So here's the violin strung up as a viola. Okay, so now we have a very small viola, 15 inches. Okay, then we have a slightly longer viola at 15.5 inches, but the body is wider as well. So let's see what that sounds like. Okay, so perhaps you can hear the difference. So now these are small violas, right? So if I went to a 16-inch viola or a 16.5-inch viola, then you would hear even bigger difference. So as a general rule, violas try to play as big a viola as they physically can because the sound is almost always going to be a little bit better. Okay, so now perhaps you're saying, okay, I definitely want a viola with viola strings. So there are a couple options for you. If you need a viola that is as small as 14 inches, which is a full-size violin, or as small as a 3/4 size violin, which is 13 inches, you can buy them a lot of the time. However, you gotta be a little bit careful because there are, I'd say, a lot of online shops in particular that are selling you at an increased price 14-inch violas and 13-inch violas, but they're actually just violins with viola strings on them. So the differences will not usually be the width of the body, but usually the thickness of the body. So the ribs on a viola, right, these are the ribs here, the ribs will usually be a little bit thicker on a viola than they are on a violin. So usually they'll be thicker by at least 1/8 of an inch, which is about 3 millimeters or so, right? So that extra thickness, the extra thickness of the ribs will help that C string sound a little bit better. So even though the body may be the same length, the thickness of the instrument will be a little bit thicker. Of course, once you get to the, a little bit larger viola, like, 14-inch or 15-inch, then oftentimes, well, not oftentimes, but sometimes the body will actually be, so you see how this viola is not really symmetrical, right? It's really wide in the middle, it's really wide at the bottom compared to the top bow, so the bottom bow is really wide compared to the top bow. Whereas if you look at the violin, with the violin, the bows are very, very symmetrical, right? So that does help. But anyway, just to sum it up, if you need a viola that is smaller than 14 inches, then I definitely try to get an instrument that's set up as a viola, meaning so the fingerboard will be done properly, so there's more room for that C string to move, and the instrument will be a little bit thicker. Now, if you need a viola, let's say for a child, that's smaller than 3/4 size violin, then yeah, unfortunately, you'll probably have to just get a violin strung up with viola strings. And you just have to hope that your kid grows as fast as possible. So I hope this video helped you guys. And of course, as always, if you have any questions, just put them down in the description below. I answer pretty much all the questions that I get, and the questions usually give me ideas for a new video. And a lot of times you guys give me ideas for videos, and then I'll go ahead and do those videos. So by all means, comment below, like, whatever, and I'm reading them. And so, I hope you guys have a nice rest of the week, and happy practicing.